Hey everybody, this is Carrie with International Student Voice. Thank you so much for being here because in a few moments I'm going to show you our very first episode of Let's Meet for Coffee, which is a live conversation that we have for international students over on our Instagram account. In this episode, I talk with Stella Ko. She's an international student from Taiwan studying at the University of Denver, and she's working on her Ph.D. in counseling psychology, which was perfect for our topic, which was the international student struggles during the COVID-19 pandemic. And during this conversation, we talk about some really hard topics. So, we talked about, Zoom fatigue. Everyone's zoomed out at this point and doing everything online. But, some serious topics was, the anxiety that international students felt around some possible immigration changes, as well as some of the harsh rhetoric that we've heard during the pandemic, like China virus. So please know that, what we talk about during this episode are just some experiences of some international students. But the reason why we wanted to start Let's Meet for Coffee is to have a conversation about the international student experience and provide tips and resources and just be a support network. So if you haven't done so yet, please head on over to Instagram, make sure that you follow us. Just look for International Student Voice, all one word. And while you're at it, if you haven't done so yet either, please hit subscribe and the bell on our YouTube channel. So thank you again so much for being here. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy. Okay. Awesome. Love coffee with half and half. Oh yes, maybe I should share what I am drinking here, and also a little bit about my mug, which is a really cool story. So maybe you have your favorite mug or cup, whatever what it is that you want to drink out of. Here she is. She's coming in. So joining us. So what I'm drinking is pretty. The cup is more exciting than the coffee itself, probably. Oh, great. Stella.
Hi.
Hi. How are you doing today?
Good. I was trying to use my laptop, but I couldn't join that one. I'm just like, okay, I just gave up. Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. I'm so glad you could join. I was just telling everybody. So I have my big old cup of coffee here.
Nice.
So it's some off-brand Dunkin' Donuts. I wanted to save some money with some French vanilla creamer, and my mug. Actually, I love this mug. I had the pleasure a couple of years ago traveling to China, and I was in Shanghai, and the people I was with, they wanted to go to Starbucks, but go figure. It's like, okay, I'm in a completely different country. Let's go to Starbucks. But I love this mug because it kind of has like the outline of
that's
the
cute.
city, and it has obviously Shanghai that's inside of it. So, and of course it's huge, so I can get a couple of cups of coffee in this mug, and it helps me get through the day. So, but Stella, so I didn't get a chance to properly introduce you. So everybody, if you're just joining us, this is our very first Let's Meet for Coffee, where we're having conversations for international students, and we're talking about COVID-19, the struggles, and how we best move forward. So Stella, she is here. She's going to help me talk about this today. And she's a Taiwanese PhD student at the University of Denver. If you haven't been to Denver, I recommend it. Beautiful city. She's doing her PhD in counseling psychology, and she has worked at career centers and counseling centers in both English and Mandarin Chinese, which is amazing. She loves working with international students and as a counselor, and you're now applying for psychology internships at different university counseling centers. So thank you so much for joining us. So please tell us, I gave you a little introduction, but if there's anything else you want to share about yourself, and also maybe what you're drinking today.
Yep. So here's my coffee. It's not that cool. It's a coffee mug from Pete's, but actually I used the coffee bean from Fields, so it's not the same brand with the mug, but I love it.
It's good. Pete's is good. Yeah, I respect that. So a mug is a mug. So as long as you can have your coffee in it, then hey, I'm all for it. So, okay, so I guess we can just dive right in about our topic today. So, this is titled "Ouch," COVID-19. So, I think we've all again have our own experiences. So let's start off, Stella. Let's talk about your experience. So you kind of wear two different hats. Obviously, you are an international student,
But you're also helping other international students since you're studying counseling and psychology. So maybe you can start off by, sharing what your experiences have been and maybe, what's it been like working with other students.
Yeah, I would say it's already been difficult when I first started because so I actually first got my master's from Missouri, so it's very different from Denver, and I moved from Missouri to Denver I think 3 years ago, and I feel like it's just been a lot of different things happen. Just like news happened yesterday, I experienced when Trump got elected back in Missouri, so it was a big day, and I was like, wow, this is how politics happening in the U.S. because I never had that before I came to the U.S. And I just feel like it was this just like a lot of time I had to spend on adjustment. So adjusting to here, speaking English all the time, and taking all the classes in English, writing a lot of papers, paper after paper readings, a lot of readings as well.
Yeah.
And also just like in the classroom, it's more discussion based. And I feel like back in my culture, it's more like lecture, you're just there listening and take notes. It's not about like discussion, role play as a counselor and a client, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like with COVID, it just been more challenging because like in the past, I can, see my friends in class, like after class, we walk together to our, maybe our condo after class or something like that. But all that was gone. I couldn't see my friend that often in person. I couldn't have lunch with them like at the corner in the building or something like that. So I feel like with COVID, just like more and more, we have to learn about adjustment and just be flexible with the things that's kind of happened and be new, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think, that's a good, good summary just for everybody. How do we be flexible? And I think, you and I had talked about this previously,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about some of the, so once COVID happened, and one topic that you brought up I thought was very interesting was just the cultural differences between, regarding safety. So,
Right.
could you touch on that a little bit and what you meant by that?
Yeah, so I actually started wearing a mask back in like February when I go to classroom, and I have people come and be like, "Oh wow, Chinese virus coming! Oh, she must be from China, blah blah blah. She has virus." And I was just in my building, like want to be in class in a safe, situation. But I feel like in the US, people don't really like wearing masks, but in Taiwan, it's so common. You wear masks like almost all the time, just for whatever reasons. And here, there's more stigma like around wearing a mask. Like, oh wow, they must be sick. They wear a mask, or it's not polite to wear a mask with your client when you see them in counseling. Those kind of stigma was like earlier. I would be hearing about those back in like February, January, I think. It was hard for me to adjust to that. Even like from the news yesterday, I saw like, wow, this crowded people like, flooding the capital. And it was like, wow, they're now wearing masks. Like even now, it's already like a year after that. People are not still wearing masks. I feel like as a Taiwanese, it's just hard to believe from my own eyes and just hard. It's because in Taiwan, we are so strict with everything with COVID. We track each cases, where they go, we track them. And they quarantine for like 2 weeks in a hotel, not in their home. So they have no contact with other people. So I feel like for me, it's hard to just adjust to like different cultures here in the US and different policy, different regulation stuff. And I have to tell myself, I should not like, judge them based on my Taiwanese perspective, but it's also hard to think about like how unsafe I would feel in the classroom or how unsafe I feel like even with wearing a mask back in last year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Those are all, really good points. And I think another very decisive topic in the United States right now. And just to shut, I think what it comes down to a lot of viewpoints. Now, there's a variety of viewpoints why why it's such a hot topic. Some people genuinely can't wear the mask for medical reasons. Um, Others have said, it's their individual freedom. You can't tell me what to do. So I think it's a very interesting dynamic and I also think that because of the United States, with all different 50 states, each state has its own kind of, its own government. So we have this overlapping, federal government, we have state,
Right.
local, and this very different cultures vary depending on what state you go to, even what part of the state that you go to. So it's been this you can't tell me what to do kind of, that's been also one of the other reasons. So it's been very interesting to see how it all plays out. So while I appreciate you sharing, where, someone from, coming from Taiwan, where like that's totally normal coming here and you're seeing all this just, I guess, dissent about should I wear a mask or not, and it's like it's kind of crazy to process. So
Yeah, I guess for me, it feels like we wear masks, we want to protect us and people, so we won't be getting sick altogether. But I feel like here, seeing that is triggering. People are like, wow, I feel nervous to see a mask because it's just a new thing for them to learn. And I learned that from my clients last year too, when I was working with people. They don't want to wear a mask.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I always thought it was a good idea, and I appreciated, especially when flying, if people, you know, were not feeling well and having a mask, I appreciate that. I'm like, wow, okay, you're like being considerate of others, but it's just not the norm here in the country. So
Yeah.
I know another thing that we had talked about was just speaking of flights. So not being able to some of the experiences international students have had, just not being able to go back home or worrying about family, has been another really tough subject for students. And just trying to shift everything online. So can you talk about maybe your own experience or things that you've heard from other students, just trying to shift everything online and what the struggles have been, you know, with that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely like we all experiencing the Zoom fatigue now because everything's online, all the Zoom meetings, it's classes and everything. And also I feel like because we got more freedom now between classes, we can schedule meetings between classes. So it's like Zoom after Zoom, like Zoom all day long with classes, discussion sessions, and like meetings with advisors. Everything's online now. And I just feel like it's different when I talk to people in person versus talk to a computer screen. You know, you just like this less like that kind of feeling about, oh, we're here together. It's more socializing when I can see people in person. At the same time, I also feel safer to be like with a computer as well. So it's just kind of a struggle for me to balance that. You know, I want to be safe, but I also want to see my friends. So how do I do that without like having very sore eyes every single day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there are days, I mean, I was just so stiff. Like I couldn't, like my neck was hurting. I was just like, because I just sat so long in front of the computer. So, and I also think, you know, there was a moment last year, there was a lot of anxiety around, you know, Immigration Custom Enforcement, also known as ICE. They had shared a recommendation about, you know, if international students are just taking all their classes online. And I can give some context to that. That also created a lot of anxiety with everything being online. I can give some context where that's normally the rule is international students, you're here in the U.S., you're here to study. So majority of your classes should be in person. I think you're allowed to take one online class. So, so when COVID hit in the spring, they relaxed that rule, you know, saying we get it. You can take all of your classes online. So they relaxed it for spring and summer, and then they came out with the recommendation of maybe bringing it back for the fall, and that just created, understandably, a lot of anxiety. So if you if you probably maybe felt the same way, or what was your experience around that?
I was freaking out to be honest. Yeah, because it's not just recommendation; it's more like the ban us from taking classes online. So we have either to go to class in person or going back to my own country taking class from there with like maybe like 17, 14 hours time difference. And also it was not safe to travel internationally at the time in the summer too.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, what do I do now with this new policy that I would either have to risk my own house or risk my own visa status, and either way is not wonderful because, as you know, people work on student visa. We have to work on campus. We have to have a F1 visa. If I lose my visa, I can't even work as my internship right now with my program. So I will lose my jobs like in the moment as well. So it was hard for me to navigate everything and then keep up with the news. It was just lots of anxiety I had over the summer, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was just terrible, and thankfully, and I think there was a couple of other political kind of plays going on with that. So there was a lot of pressure, just not only universities, but just, you know, grade schools, high schools, pressuring them to open. So I think, excuse me, there was just a lot of things going on, pressuring, you know, people to open their doors. And maybe that was, you know, maybe not. This is just me speculating. So either way, it was not a good time. Thankfully, a couple of university leaders stepped up and said this isn't right, and they backed down on that. So, so that was just one of the things, very particular for international students. And I also think at that time, it brought a lot of awareness, if there's any positive we can get out of that, a lot of awareness to domestic students about just some of the unique things that international students face. And you had shared a couple of resources, which we'll talk about here at the end, if we can have any American students if they want to help and advocate for international students. So, but anyway, so those are just a couple of things. We talked about technology. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the COVID-19 struggles for international students and experiences. Please feel free to share your experiences below in the comments, and as well as resources. We're in 2021. Here's the finish. How do we get there? So how do we keep moving? There is light at the end of the tunnel. So we have Stella with us. She's at the University of Denver, and she's doing her Ph.D. in counseling psychology. So last but not least, probably maybe the biggest ouch out of all of this is just the messaging around COVID-19, the rhetoric, specifically the phrase China virus being used. It's where we can start with that. I would appreciate you sharing maybe how that has affected you or other international students around the messaging with COVID-19. So yeah, if there's anything you could share about that.
I would say it's definitely a struggle for me to, already like feeling anxious about pandemic, and then I have to deal with racism and xenophobia at the same time, which means that I worry about getting sick and about getting assaulted by the people by comments like, oh, she's from China, maybe, and then, oh, she must be the Chinese virus carrier, blah, blah, blah. And that's just not respectful to people. And also, I know people like some of my Asian friends, they got assaulted at the supermarket as well. When they go grocery shopping, they got like commented on that because they're Asian. So they were like, just like stay away from her or something like that. And she can feel it. And it's just offensive to do that. And also make people feel like excluded and feel unsafe, I think. I just feel like it's hard for us to navigate the pandemic within a culture that we have to deal with racism, with xenophobia. People feel like, oh, she's foreigner, coming here stealing our jobs. Those kind of accusations. It's just make us feel more and more stressed. I think it's not helping, because it's just a lot of like stereotypes about people from other country or for like have Asian background. And these things actually impact our mental health as well. It's not just we care about pandemic, we care about the physical health, but also we worry and then we feel anxious. We couldn't function at work. That's mental health issue. And I feel like those kind of things just make me feel like, I have to spend more energy to deal with those things and then stay healthy. And I wish that I would have to deal with that first.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible, and I'm so sorry you had experienced anything, and also the students who are watching or will watch this. It's very, very unfortunate, and I think people just don't realize when they kind of repeat stuff like that. It's just basically unfair in the stress that it causes others. So. It's disappointing, and I think we talked about various different struggles that international students have faced, particularly with COVID. And as we're heading into this new year, and this is where I really I appreciate your insight because of what you're studying and the work that you do. How can we move forward? What's some tips that you have for students? We can stay positive. How do we keep going? So can you share, some tips that you tell students and maybe you tell yourself?
Yeah. I would say that for me, I think about like how much I sacrificed when I came to the States. We all lost the time to spend with our family back home. We all lost the money we have to spend for tuition here. It's pricey to go to school in the United States. And also been doing a lot of good work here, right? Even whatever major you're in and you're not getting your degree towards something else and you are working so hard toward that. And that's a lot of progress you've been making. I think a lot of time I will be thinking about what I have done not right, but actually think about what you have done great, as well. So think about things you have done great and then make yourself feel proud. And just don't dismiss those strengths you have and those progress you've been making. And that's what I think we have to think about, because I think many times we feel so like we're so harsh on ourselves. We want to be like, working harder, do more better things and everything. But at the same time, we have to keep going with enough energy, right? So think about the thing you've been done greatly and then just choose out better. I would say that to kick this off. And I think self-care is important. And that means how do you take care of yourself as you take care of your sick body? So think about your health as physical and also mental. If you're sick, you may go to sleep, right? You take some medicine, you try to take care of yourself and become healthy again. And that's same for your mental health. When you feel sad, when you feel anxious, what do you do to feel less sad and less anxious? So do you talk to your family sometimes, keep in touch with them? Hearing from your family could be comforting for you to feel more support from your friends and family. That's a way to cope with stress. Other things I usually do would be, maybe I'll keep a journal, write down the things I think about and processing those thoughts, and maybe talk to my friends, take a walk outside with your mask, of course, and do some workout, something easy, like you can take a deep breath, you can do some workout at home. I think there's a lot of videos you can find on YouTube that you can do workout at home without annoying your neighbors, I think. Yeah. So do those things. It's helpful for you to stay healthy mentally and also physically. Yeah. And last thing I want to add is that I know news are disturbing right now. It's okay to say no to those right now. It's okay to block the news for a while, not watching those news, because if you keep letting the news invading your life, you cannot focus and function, right? So it's okay if you take a break from there, block the news for now, not watching that until the night after you're done with all your work and classes, or leave it for the weekend. So it's okay to not about that for now. I think people sometimes feel like it's hard to control their feelings, hard to control their anxiety. But at the same time, it's really hard for us to really control anything that we're feeling, right? It's really feelings and emotions.
Yeah.
So I would say we can't really control anxiety, but we can control how we deal with anxiety, right? Mm-hmm. You can keep watching news and feel anxious the whole day long and not going to your classes. You can turn off the news, go to class, and think about your classwork, and then think about news later. So I think we can still decide at this point that to think about how do you treat those news, treat those triggers, even with the pandemic as well. We can stay here, worry about all about the virus and like the vaccine and everything, but we can think about it later. So I would say it's up to you to think about how much you want to take care of yourself and what do you do to feel most comfortable for you to practice those tips. Yeah. It's just some of my 2 cents, I would say.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, it's all great points. And I really appreciate what you said just about the news. I'm a news junkie. I love watching the news. I love reading news. I used to actually be a news producer. So I just love news. And even me, I'm like, I can't watch this today. I need to take a break from this because I could feel myself like I would get so anxious. And I'm a pretty easygoing person, but everything I was just like, oh my God, like why am I so nervous? Like what is going on? So, and I just needed to step back. You need to have a space where you can. So I think what you said about it's about taking care of yourself mentally and physically. So, and I will attest, there's plenty of videos on YouTube. If you just want to like dance, that's what I like to do. So I just need to get it's too cold outside where I am now. So, doing some movements inside the house is very, very helpful. So, but thank you so much. And if you missed or you're just joining us, we had talked about international student struggles, as it relates to COVID-19, and Stella just shared some great tips and advice about how do you cope, how do you still move forward. We're all tired now, but we can make it. We're going to get there. So if you just joined us, we're actually going to have this recording. You can rewatch it on our Instagram account. We'll also have it up on our website. And actually, if you go to the link in our profile right now, we have a summary of what we talked about, and we'll also put the video up there as well. And then Stella, she had provided me some resources that I think are very, very helpful. So Stella, do you want to talk about those 2 resources that they'll find once they go to our website?
Yeah, so last summer I was working with the American Psychological Association international section, and we were making like a brochure. So it's more like a handbook for people. They can think about how do I cope with COVID right now? How do I, feel less anxious? And how do I look for jobs within the pandemic? It's so hard to interview online, then figure out jobs with your visa status right now as well. So we made 2 handbooks. One is for students like us. One is for faculty members or like allied who want to help other people. They are not international students. So, and I think Carrie will post those links somewhere in this account. Yeah. I think you can find it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the two things we made over the summer to help people to get more resources and more help.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much sending me those 2 documents. So yeah, if you go to the link in our profile, you click that, it will take you to our website where we've kind of summarized what we talked about today, and you'll find 2 links to those 2 resources that Stella is talking about. And I think the one for how to be an ally for international students is great. So if you're watching this and maybe have some American friends that you can share that with, so you can say, hey, if you appreciate our friendship, you've learned a lot from me, here's some things if you can share with others. So I thought that was very, very, that was great. I appreciate you sharing that. So both of those you can find on our website. Head over to the link in our profile. It'll take you to our website where you can see those resources. So with that, we're going to wrap up. Stella, thank you so much for joining me today, sharing your experiences, what you've learned from other students during COVID-19, and your tips and resources. Make sure, if you're watching or you're watching this, later, make sure you do what Stella says. It's great advice. So I appreciate it so much. And Stella, I know, as a counseling psychology student, you're doing your Ph.D., you're actually doing a study right now. So could you, as we're here to the end, can you explain your study, what research that you're doing? And if international students want to participate, keep sharing their voice, how can they do that?
Yeah. So I'm looking at how people cope as international students. So I'm looking at like how people cope with stress, but also receive social support. Because I think when you think about students from other country, we think about anxiety, depression, stress, but we also have resilience and strength. We can cope, So I think I want to look at both factors. So the stress part and also the coping skill part. So the stress part means discrimination or feelings of shame. And the coping means social support and acculturation, which means how you adjust to the culture in the US right now. And I look at how those impact your well-being as a student from East Asia. So if you're from East Asia, which means China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, Mongolia, please, you can click on the link post somewhere by Carrie in this account, I think. Yeah, you can get started from me, and you can win an Amazon gift card at the end of the survey.
Okay, awesome. So yes, I will post the link to Stella's survey. So if you want to, talk about and help her with her research about how international undergraduate students from East Asia are coping, the stressors as well as the coping, she would greatly appreciate your participation to help her. To help her.
I want to graduate.
Yes, we want you to graduate too. So we'll make sure we include the link to that as well. So Stella, my cup is almost empty. So I'll have to
almost,
this big old cup. So, but Stella, thank you so much. You're part of history and being our first guest for Let's Meet for Coffee. So thank you so much for helping us kick off this series. And thank you so much for sharing your insight, experiences, tips, and resources for international students as we move forward dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. So thank you so much for your time. And again, if you just joined us, you want to catch up, you can rewatch this on our Instagram account, head over to our website, and we'll also have it available on our YouTube channel as well.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's so fun doing this with you. And I really like doing this and learn from other people as well. So awesome. Everybody take care. You also take care and stay safe there, Carrie.
Yes, thank you. Everyone, please, if you're watching, stay safe and have a good one.
So, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye.